Just Microphone on. All right, we'll try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the April 18th meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee. My name is Mike Wasserman, District 1 Supervisor. And Dr. Jordan, why don't we start with roll call. Michelle, if that's all right, we'll just say the names, go through. Thank you.
Dr. Jordan, Medical Examiner, Coroner's Office.
Jeff Rosen, District Attorney.
Laura Garnett, Chief Probation Officer.
No. I think the Sheriff's Department will help you out.
No, this isn't. This one's.
Have we done the clerk's budget yet? We might need some new equipment.
Jeff got it. All right.
What do you think, Madam Clerk?
I missed that last part.
We're going to add microphones to your budget.
Have you microphones issue?
They won't get approved.
Do you hear the CEO?
Laura Garnett, Probation.
Nice.
Captain David Sepulveda sitting in for Under Sheriff Carl Newsel.
Good afternoon, Molly O'Neill, Public Defender.
Aaron Johnson, Pretrial Services.
Good afternoon, Deborah Ryan. I'm the Assistant Presiding Judge of our court, sitting in for Judge Lucas, our presiding judge.
Supervisor Ken Yeager, District 4.
Jeff Smith, County Executive.
Miguel Marquez, Chief Operating Officer.
Wendy Botha, Assistant County Counsel.
Gary Hersig, Deputy County Exec.
And Sylvia Perez McDonald, Director, Independent Defense Counsel Office.
Thank you all very much for being here and welcome. We now move on to item number 2, which is public comment, which is the opportunity for anyone to speak about anything not on today's agenda. If you wish to do so, you fill out a speaker card, and as you see the clerk doing, she'll pick them up, bring them over here, and you'll get your opportunity. I have one card for public comment. I have 2 cards for public comment, and I would ask both Susan Bassey and Scott Largent come on forward. Whoever gets there first can start talking first, and you'll each have up to 3 minutes.
It's like I haul all my stuff up here now after my cell phone mysteriously disappeared at that interesting meeting weeks ago. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Scott Largent. What I was noticing in the beginning of this meeting, well, it's been happening a lot. Let's just be honest, you guys' equipment's crap. I mean, maybe it's time to start getting new microphones. And I mean, this stuff it's consistently been happening. It's not even funny anymore. So maybe we'll, instead of laughing about it and making it a big joke, let's start replacing some of this stuff because it's slowing you guys down. At the supervisor meeting, you guys couldn't even vote properly up on that screen. And it was kind of shameful that different information was popping up and people were in the back. They're like, wow, Silicon Valley, we're really booming here. It's pretty pathetic right here. It's like our computer systems over at our courthouse. It's like some of these dinosaurs in different departments. It's pathetic. So, but I always have positive feedback for all you people that don't really pay attention. So that's why this is my therapy in here. And this helps me out a lot. I attended a court appearance 2 weeks ago, and I've talked about this a lot, in Department 23, and I believe it's to determine if a defendant can represent themselves. I'm not really familiar about the whole process. I've sat in Judge Manley's courtroom when it involves the mentally ill, and that is a tight ship. It's ran properly. People are treated with dignity and respect, even people from the community. In this torture chamber down there in Department 23, I went in there to advocate for a friend, and I stood up with her at the podium. This woman was terrified, doesn't even have a criminal record. And I went up to the podium, and I'm kind of standing here. She's shaking right here. She's terrified to be in here. And the deputy tells me I can't be up there, I can't be standing there, that I need to sit down. I end up sitting a couple rows back. Next thing you know, he lifts me out of a chair, slams me on the ground, dislocates my shoulder, sprains my shoulder, and then proceeds to just throw me out of the courtroom. Now, if I committed a crime, that's where you would think I would be detained, prosecuted, arrested, like all these things would go, that would happen. Instead of just throw him out of the courtroom and this deputy just tries to disappear. Well, Deputy Collazo was really out of line. Since internal affairs is a failure, I filed it with the whistleblower program. I've gone to the 10th floor of the county, which they never pay attention, but I still filled out the form. So hopefully you guys start kind of waking up to this stuff. Nobody should be treated from the public like that in a courtroom. And this isn't the first time. And this has happened over at our Family Justice Center over there. And this stuff needs to stop. There's a lot of people that are fed up like me, and a good group of people that have been really kind of stepping up to the plate. It's this group called the Pink Wall, and they've been having this protest every Tuesday over at Family Court now. I missed it yesterday. I'm sorry, I missed it on Tuesday because I had the supervisor meeting, but I'm getting excited. I passed that in the light rail, and I'm like right on. People really standing up for their rights, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger because you guys don't listen. And I think when you have enough of a disruption out in front of that courthouse, people will start listening. So I'm getting excited about it. Hey, fix the
Ms.
mics,
Bassey,
guys.
you're up.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I have a request that the clerk copy this report and distribute it to everybody on this panel. This is a report that is probably 1/10 of what I've been preparing over the last several months. Judge Ryan, it's nice to meet you. I have seen some information that has crossed my desk that you were having trouble with dealing with complaints from the public and not understanding the Odyssey system. I hope that you have learned to understand that. In the last week, I have had a letter from Jeff Rosen's office that I was not entitled to public records because it was a conflict with his office, and they considered it a discovery request. I understand that the Deputy DA that responded to that is in charge of victim services. And 2 days ago, I learned that victim services, which Jeff Rosen was very proud to bring back into his office, is now told a victim of a crime that Jeff Rosen is currently indicting Valerie Houghton for, that he was not allowed to designate me as a support person because Jeff Rosen's office is prosecuting me for taking a photograph in the courthouse in violation of a local rule. And at the same time, everybody has gone silent on their public records requests, and I'm being made out to be a sovereign citizen for doing public records. I have been doing public records requests in the state with my associates. My associates have been doing it for over 10 years. I work on a number of committees, and I know records requests. And I also know that this county was sued and had to pay a $500,000 settlement because you guys didn't get geographical maps related to the Sierra Club right. So you guys have a lot of deficiencies, but the biggest one is you're violating the rights of victims. So you're getting, I've calculated through the records requests I have been able to get through state and federal agencies, this county has received over $100 million in the last 5 years for the elderly, for victims of domestic violence, for victims of the Violence Against Women Protection Act, for a number of victims. And Jeff Rosen's office is gatekeeping who gets to be a victim. I'd like to read part of a letter that is sitting on Deputy DA Stibbins' desk, and it reads, Bradford Baugh is one of the most successful, if not the successful, family law lawyers now practicing law in Santa Clara County. That is my assessment, and I have practiced law in Santa Clara County longer than he has, been certified a family law specialist since May of 1985. The problem is that Baugh is so sociopathic that he is devoid of any concern over criminality violating Business and Professions Code 6128, or any worry over the consequences if prevailing requires. The rest of us don't have that problem. The rest of us achieve success in a case when we do by working hard at discovering the material facts, by studying hard the law applicable to those material facts, and working hard to prepare a case in which we are able to honestly prove the facts necessary required by the trier of fact. I hope you all will remember your job to do it right and stop harming the people in this county by your secrets and your silence.
That concludes our public comment. We now move on to the consent calendar. We have item number 10 as a consent item today. Supervisor Yeager, any other comments you may wish to make?
No comments here.
All right, then we'll consider that your approval of item 10 as well as mine, Madam Clerk. That'll pass 2-0. Thank you. All right, we would now normally move on to item number 4, which is a report from the sheriff, but I understand that she'll be arriving a little bit later. So committee members, we're going to move that down to the bottom and hear 4 after 9. That moves us on now to item number 5, which is to receive a report from the Office of the District Attorney. And Mr. DA, before you start that, I've got some speakers. I'm going to call them up. We'll hear from the public first and then have your presentation. Again, I'm going to read these names just as I've received them. Please come on up, line up in the queue so that you're in the line. That'll help our meeting be more efficient. Elizabeth Machayan Diaz. Sorry if I misspoke on the middle name there. David Parker, come on up. Oscar De La Torre. Nicole Baldacci. Nil or Mil Cottrell. And Trevor Gillis. If you all just come up, and as the clerk has, you'll see on the timer, it's 2 minutes. You each have up to 2 minutes to speak. The microphone is built into the podium there, so you just need to talk and we'll pick you up for the record. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Machayan Diaz. I'm a legal clerk with the District Attorney's Office. I'm here today to express my support for the DA's office 2019 budget request, specifically more support for staff positions. As our county has grown, the DA's office has seen a tremendous increase in casework. There simply is not enough support staff to keep up with the needs of the office. We need more paralegals, we need more paralegals, legal secretaries, and legal clerks. With existing units and new units being created, support staff is often assigned to multiple units, which can equal high volume of work requests. Many support staff have extremely high amounts of overtime, which can endanger the quality of work product and causes burnout. As a legal clerk, I'm assigned to assist the Chief Trial Deputy, Violent Felony Unit, General Felony Unit, and Mental Health. Please consider the request and need for additional support staff as a part of the District Attorney's Office 2019 budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello. My name is Oscar De La Torre. I am a paralegal at the DA's office. I have worked in sexual assault and now I work in gangs. And I am going to follow up on what my colleague Elizabeth Diaz commented. And basically, sexual assault went from 4 paralegals to 3 paralegals a few years ago. Now I'm in gangs. I'm supporting multiple attorneys, and we went from 4 paralegals to 3 paralegals. We're going downward because we are having to share paralegals with other units. And I want to refer to the 2016-2017 Santa Clara County Civil Grand Jury Report, which rates us at the bottom of the state in regards to felony cases adjudication within a year. And bottom line, it's what does the report call it? The cost of milk. Cost of milk, we're going to have to buy the milk no matter what. Either we buy it at the front end or we buy it at the back end. Either we spend money on support staff to process these cases and have a good relationship with the public and empty out our jails as much as we can, or we buy it at the back end and we spend more money housing inmates, hiring correctional officers to help with the inmates and stuff like that. Bottom line, it's money. And at the DA's office, for 2016, the office spent, looks like $78,000 in overtime for 2016. That's one person's salary. That's just looking at paralegals alone. So we're already spending the money in overtime. We're overworking our people. And that decreases efficiency throughout the rest of the work week. So we got to look at that. And bottom line, the cost of milk, we're buying the milk. When are we going to pay for it? In the front or the back? We're still paying for it. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Nicole Baldacci. I'm a senior paralegal at the DA's office. I'm not very good at public speaking, so if you excuse me, I don't have a fancy speech to tell you. I'm just going to tell you what I do every day. I've been at the DA's office for about 5 years now. And don't get me wrong, because the district attorney is here, I love my job. I'm not complaining about my job. I really enjoy that we help people, but we're very overworked and very tired. I worked, I think, over 130 hours. I printed out right here, over 130 hours of overtime last year and the year before, and that's just the time that I reported. Most of the time I work through lunch and I come early, and that's just to be able to survive the day-to-day assignments because we don't want to get behind and we don't want to drown. So I just really want you guys to consider giving us more support staff so that we can better support the attorneys and better support the cases that come into our office on a more efficient basis without burning out all of our staff, without losing quality because we're burnt out. And it would make for better, a better environment and a better quality, better output. And at the end of the day, it really does save money. Thank you.
Come on up. Come on up.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lil Cottrell, and I'm a senior paralegal at the District Attorney's Office. Okay. So, have you ever been a victim? It could be something minute as being cut in front of in line. You know, I'm short, I get cut in front of all the time. Or being cut off while you're driving. Most likely, though, you probably got over it within minutes or hours, yes? So imagine being the victim of something more egregious, sexual assault. You have suffered through the trauma itself, and now you have to live the entire ordeal when giving statements to the police while being poked and prodded by nurses and doctors because they have to administer a SART kit, sexual assault rape trauma kit. Then the SART kit goes to the crime lab, put in a queue of many, many, many other SART kits waiting to be processed. And because the crime lab is understaffed, that could take literally months to a year for your SART kit to be processed. Meanwhile, you, the victim, are in a holding pattern because the DA needs the SART kit results in order to move forward with their case. Once it's finally processed, people like myself, legal clerks, legal secretaries, we receive the lab reports, then it now has to go into another queue to be reviewed and redacted. Now bear in mind, your case is not the only case that we're working on, okay? So, but because the DA's office is understaffed with paralegals, legal secretaries, and clerks, you, the victim, will have to wait again. And then your results are going to go to the DA, who has to review it. So now it's a year later, you can finally proceed, but now you have to come to terms again with reliving this. So with more support staff, we'd have the ability to help the victims move on with their lives, their mental health, and by helping them seek justice through resolving cases in a timely manner. Isn't that the least victims deserve? Thank you.
Thank you. Again, this is item number 5. I've got new cards from Susan and Janine. Come on forward. Are you Janine?
Yes.
Okay, we've got you, Janine. And Susan Bassey, you'll be up. And are you Trevor?
Yeah.
Okay.
And David Parker is for item 7, I believe.
Yes, I've got him for 7. Thank you very much. All right, welcome, Janine.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Janine Rogers. I'm a victim advocate with the District Attorney's Office. I just wanted to speak after my coworker Lil to describe a little bit about what the victim advocates see every day. It looks like one of our budget requests for a victim advocate position is going to be approved, which we're very grateful for. Victims in this county, we're very grateful that we're within the DA's office and we're serving those victims. One of the issues, which is why I did want to come up and speak after Lil, is that victim advocates can only do so much. And when we are sitting there explaining to a victim, we're sorry, your case hasn't been reviewed yet, much like what Lil described for a sexual assault victim, that's very difficult for the victim advocate to explain to a victim of a crime who's already going through that trauma that there's a delay because we don't have enough people. There's a delay because our paralegals are overworked, our legal secretaries are overworked. And that's, most of the victim advocates, I know I do what I do because I want to serve victims. I want them to have the experience to get up in court and speak about their experience. And it's frustrating when there are multiple delays in court because discovery isn't getting to the defense attorneys in time, or we can't, it's taking so long for the SART exams to be processed. And we have great agencies in this county. We've got community-based organizations who are working with those domestic violence victims and those sexual assault victims. But I think there are some victims that get overlooked. There are elder abuse victims. There are children who are maybe within the SSA system who also need victim advocates who aren't getting their voices heard for maybe a year. They might move out of the county. They're not getting the justice that they need because our support people are so overworked that they're not able to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. There's also a clock up here if you want to see the time winding down, if you want to kind of time your comments.
Hello, committee members. My name is Trevor Gillis. I am the Chief Steward for SEIU at the DA's office. We are here today to express our support for the DA's office budget request, and specifically for more support staff positions. As you probably all know, Santa Clara County has one of the longest judicial delays in the state, and some of this is attributable directly to paralegal, legal secretary, and legal clerk position understaffing at the DA's office. The sheer volume of cases handled in the DA's office has increased by 30% over the past 5 years. Yet the DA's office budget request currently is a meager 4% increase in support staff positions. And just like the advent of computers increased the volume of paperwork in offices, the proliferation of body cameras, smartphones, and other digital media has caused the average size and complexity of each of our cases to balloon. And despite the office's programs to go paperless and to streamline cases, the addition of this new evidence has caused the size of cases to grow and has not decreased the burdens on our paralegals, our legal secretaries, and our legal clerks. For the past 10 years, the DA's office has seen natural growth in casework as the population has grown. Requests for the inevitable expansion of paralegal, clerical staff numbers has been limited over the past decade because we've been able to streamline, reorganize, and restructure casework. But we've hit the efficiency limit now of what we can really accomplish with our low numbers of support staff. There's no coincidence that the degree of understaffing of the support staff in the DA's office has a strong correlation with the judicial delays in the county. The DA's office is asking for a modest increase in support staff positions, if for no other reason than to curb the judicial delays. So we're pleased asking this committee to seriously consider the request of Jeff Rosen and the need for more paralegals, legal secretaries, and legal clerks as a part of the DA's office 2019 budget request.
Good job.
Thank you.
Ms. Bassey and Mr. Largent.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I do appreciate all the work that all the clerks, the paralegals, and the people do in the district attorneys or any office in our county. Those are the people who are vastly underpaid, underappreciated, and who are suffering from people who are abusing their power. I don't think that most people realize that the average salary with benefits package of a lawyer in the district attorney's office is over $300,000 a year. And I think these clerks and people who are putting in a lot of work should be compensated appropriately. But the other thing that is wrong is that your numbers are skewed. In taking the Victim Services Unit into Jeff Rosen's office, you created a conflict. Yesterday, a man who he's 79 years old, was not able to have a support person that he's assured under Marsy's Law. You are not complying with Marsy's Law. You are not taking care of victims. Your judges are not trained to be careful with victims. And these people can advocate and do everything all they want. But if Jeff Rosen is going to pad applications for victim services, or if he's going to block them to skew his numbers, you're not getting the real facts. And the reality is that yesterday I spoke with Kendra Scott, and she is the victim of former 49er Ray McDonald. And I asked her, in the 5 years that the district attorney's office has been dealing with these 49ers who have been sexually assaulting and harassing women throughout our county, if anyone ever offered Kendra Scott the services she's entitled to under Marsy's Law. And despite all the training and certification of the advocates that we have in our office, no one ever did. No one ever told her about the form through the Office of Emergency Services. No one ever gave her any support. So before you give this man one more dime in that department, make him manage the dimes that he has now much better.
Well, I can't top that one at all. All right. I do appreciate the work that the paralegals and clerks at the DA's office do for the community. My issues with fighting for my daughter are so low on the totem pole because there's really no violence associated with it. There was no charges and stuff. So the people that came down to try to help me at the DA's office were the paralegals. It is the group over there. So I know I'm low on the end right there, but it's nice to see people come in here and try to tell you guys what's going wrong. So rather than kind of set them up to fail and fire them all next week, maybe we should listen to what they're coming in here talking about. That's my main concern with this county. People come forward and the county uses that information against them and just stabs them in the back and sends them on down the road. This is a very good opportunity to listen, you know, not be on your cell phones, not be sending emails. Listen to the people that are working for you, because this is the backbone of the DA's office over here. And I'm impressed. I mean, some of these people are not even, you know, real speakers, but they're up here and they're speaking truth to power, and you guys need to pay attention. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public speakers. Mr. Rosen.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. I'm often surprised when I come to the chambers here, but this afternoon I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know that support staff from the DA's office was going to come and advocate for more positions, so I very much appreciate their efforts in doing that, and I share their concerns. The responsibilities of the District Attorney's Office are quite broad, and I think it's important to remind the board and remind county administration that our responsibilities really, first of all, begin before cases are even brought to us. We often assist law enforcement officers with investigations that we're involved in, whether it's writing search warrants or strategizing. We're responsible for helping to prevent crime through various outreach efforts. Many of the crimes that we prosecute in the District Attorney's Office are not even brought to us from law enforcement agencies. They're cases that the investigators in our office handle from the very beginning until we file charges. In addition to that, we're also responsible for reviewing law enforcement's actions in the areas where law enforcement uses force, whether it's an officer-involved fatal shooting or an officer-involved shooting where there's great bodily injury. In addition to that, of course, much of the cases that we prosecute these days involve evidence that we send to the crime lab, whether it's DNA evidence to be analyzed or cell phones or laptops, which are evidence that we see in almost every kind of case we prosecute now. And of course, we also serve the victims of crime through the criminal justice proceedings. And then even after a defendant is convicted of crimes, we're involved in the post-conviction proceedings many times, whether those are writs and appeals or habeas petitions. So I just want to emphasize that we're not simply a mirror to what a defense attorney does, whether it's a public defender or alternate defender or independent defender's office. The other thing I'd like to highlight for the board is that during the course of my career as a district attorney starting in 1995, as was alluded to by many of the individuals from within the DA's office, the amount of information that we have on all of our cases is exponentially greater than when I began as a prosecutor. So if a typical misdemeanor file when I began in the 90s was maybe 2 or 3 inches thick with paper, today it's 10 to 12 inches thick because, as was alluded to, there's video recording, there's audio recording, and so just the amount of information that we're managing, even on relatively straightforward cases, has grown enormously. In addition, I know that Oscar De La Torre was speaking about the situation we have on our gang team. The amount of discovery that we are processing on the gang team is enormous. There have been changes in the law which make it more complicated and difficult for us to prove predicate offenses and prove that individuals were involved in criminal street gangs, and so that's required more evidence and more information in these matters as well. So I think that we're doing the best we can with the resources that we have, but we are asking for modest increases to help us be more efficient. And so I'm happy to answer any. The other just point of comparison I would make is currently in the DA's office we have 192 prosecutors. Now at our high about 10 to 12 years ago, we had about 210 prosecutors. However, some of those prosecutors did dependency work, some of those prosecutors did child support work, which is not handled by our office anymore. So making a kind of an apples-to-apples comparison of what our high was about a dozen years ago, it would be about 200 prosecutors. And in the last 12 years, the population of the county has grown, and the complexity and amount of information that we're responsible for has also grown. And so we're looking to grow the office in a way to be able to efficiently and effectively handle the people's business. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rosen. Mr. Rosiager? No? Nor do I. We're both good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from committee members? Seeing none. And since we have the sheriff here sooner than expected, unless there's any objection, we'll now handle item number 4. That way we'll be back on schedule, numerical order, if you will. And Mr. Largent, you submitted a card. Come on up. You've got a couple of minutes to speak. Then, Madam Sheriff, you or staff to give a presentation, whatever points you wish to make.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I was looking forward to the budget presentation in the beginning prior to the comment, but I'm sure I can stay on topic for a short period of time. I was, maybe in our upcoming budget, maybe we could kind of squeeze in Scott's jail complaint, maybe we could squeeze in my other community complaints that I brought forward. Maybe we can allocate some money so I don't just get that door slammed in my face. At a Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting, I brought in several discs, and they were videos of me being harassed at my grandmother's house. And it turns out that supposedly one of the videos was blank, and Lori, you reached out to me. You gave me a call and you told me that that disc is blank. And I said, hey, I'll be down at the next meeting, I'll bring that down. This was a year ago. Nothing has materialized from that. So on that video, it's a 7-minute video of me being harassed by 2 of your deputies in my front yard. And Judge Jeremiah Stewart Scott sent him over there. So at what point do you launch an internal affairs investigation rather than protecting this crooked judge that is abusing his power? So I'm really curious. Can we include that maybe into this year's budget? Can we allocate some money off to the side and say, hey, let's stop this guy from coming in here? Because something's majorly wrong with this is not getting investigated. And I tried to file a complaint against your undersheriff, Carl Newsel. Same thing that he did, harassed me at my home. Sent law enforcement over to do a welfare check on my grandmother for me speaking up at these meetings. So why was that never investigated? Why am I filing an internal affairs complaint against Santa Clara Police when it was your department that sent him over there? It was Carl that sent him over there. So I'm really wondering, I keep hitting a wall with your internal affairs department. So shut it down or give us the opportunity to file complaints properly, because the system's crooked.
Ms. Bassey, if you'll come on down.
You all by now should have received a copy of what I printed out for you before the meeting with some attachments. And in that, I've printed out a lot of letters to Judge Lucas. One thing that I did not print out was a complaint that Robert J. Tennant made to Sheriff Smith last October about a bailiff in my courtroom, Deputy Oliveri, acting with extreme bias in my case and instructing the judge things he should do about discovery after the judge had closed the hearing. Anybody who knows anything about a court proceeding knows that that was totally improper. My lawyer wrote you a letter, Sheriff Smith, and at the same time, I had Kendra Scott and other victims who had been having to appear before Judge Towery tell me that Deputy Oliveri and other deputies in the Sheriff's Department were engaging in bias, and that's a violation of the court policies and procedures. Few people know that the courts are the largest contract that the Sheriff's Department has. It is a huge responsibility. You're dealing with deeply emotional issues. You're dealing with parents who are dealing with the custody of their children. You're dealing with property and other issues. The Sheriff's Department was also responsible for, and this is contained in your packet, when the State Bar broke into my home following a complaint, and their investigator Munoz left his backpack in my house with a number of confidential State Bar complaints and confidential information. I called the Sheriff's Department because I was in the Sheriff's Department jurisdiction. I turned it over to a deputy, and the head of the State Bar, Greg Dresser, picked it up, and that was it. That was the end of it, and that was the beginning of the retaliation against me. through the Sheriff's Department, and through the State Bar. And that's how people in our county are being treated when they make a complaint against an attorney, and especially an attorney that involves James Towery, who worked in this community and defended the county on multiple occasions when medical examiners were not doing their jobs. I'm asking you to reevaluate your complaint process and stop the retaliation.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment portion. Sheriff? Your microphone. There you go.
Got it. Good afternoon. Lori Smith, Sheriff of the county, and we have several of our staff here that will be able to answer some questions. Today we're going to be presenting the budget for both the Sheriff's Office and the Department of Correction. Our budget requests are generally focused on updating technology. We need to streamline our delivery and increase transparency. We won't go through each of the proposals, but I have staff available to answer any questions that you may have about any of the points. We really need to increase our data analytics capability, so we've requested 2 senior management analysts to be assigned to investigations to help with analyzing crime stats and a lot of the preliminary paperwork that needs to go with every investigation. That will greatly assist our detectives and actually free up some more of their time. We have an emergency response team, and we are in need of updated equipment in the form of tactical vests, and we're also looking for increasing our abilities with a tactical pole camera that will really aid in officer safety and increased quality of investigations. As we move forward with data sharing requirements, we're also rolling out new technology with the new CJIC and the new jail management system. We are in need of staff that can be dedicated to that function to manage those systems, coordinate data sharing with county and other law enforcement agencies. And the Sheriff's Office serves as the data hub, not only just for the county, but also many, many regional task forces. And we're also the hub for the state system dissemination. This request for overtime funding is within the Custody Bureau. And we've been working with the County Exec's Office on our staffing analysis, our plan, and that will increase our capacity. But we also know that with increased requirements, we'll have significant overtime needs to continue to provide the functions that have been added to the Custody Bureau and make sure that we have a safe environment for inmates, for staff, for all visitors, other personnel that are in the jail at the time. This request is for emerging technology that will allow our department to increase our ability to triangulate the location of gunfire, and we think this would be very, very important, particularly if there's shooting at schools. This will go a long way in increasing our response times, but actually pinpointing the location and nature of any shots fired. And we think that this will add to really to the safety of the community, and particularly if there is shooting around a school. This is something that we've requested last year, and we're repeating our request for child care. I still believe it's really a critical need for all county staff, particularly those that work 24-hour shifts. A single mother told me that she would like to come on as a deputy, but she has child care and issues and can't go to the academy during that period of time. I was also at the academy at one time, and a single parent male came up to me and said he selected the Sheriff's Office because he knew that we were very passionate about trying to get child care for our deputies. This not only will help with recruiting and retaining employees, but it will also assist in people who have child care issues in being able to work specialized units like homicide. Because if you're a homicide detective and you get called at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's very, very difficult to find child care. I also believe that this is something that could be used for many of the 24-hour functions that are within the county. We have Valley Medical Center, people working 24/7, probation staff. So I think it's something that if we were allowed to take the lead on it and do it on a trial basis, that it's something that could go throughout the county more and just be a real benefit for county employees. One of the gaps that exists in our current review of custody operations is reviewing our operations from gender-informed perspective. We'd like to contract with experts in gender-informed practices to look at the operations in custody and then evaluate the criminal justice system entirely in the county. This would be similar to the gender-responsive task force work that's currently occurring at the juvenile level, but would focus on women and children involved in the justice system. One of the unintended consequences of meeting our staff recruitment goals is that we have actually run out of body-worn cameras, and this will allow us to procure cameras for the additional employees and the anticipated employees. That is the total of our requests. I can either answer questions or ask some of my staff to provide more information if you'd like.
Thank you. Both Supervisor Yeager, as with all department heads, received the reports ahead of time, and they're all very well written and very complete. Supervisor Yeager, any additional comments? None either, so consider your report received. Thank you very much. We now move on to item number 6. Dr. Jordan, the medical examiner coroner report.
Good afternoon. The medical examiner coroner's office chose mass casualty response as a focus for our FY19 budget needs. Mass casualty includes any event that results in or has the potential to result in a number of deaths. These events can be natural or unnatural, such as wildfires, building explosions, mass shootings, terrorist attacks, an airplane crash, or specific for California earthquakes. Mass casualties automatically fall under the jurisdiction of the medical examiner coroner, whose responsibility is not only to render cause and manner of death, but also to positively identify decedents. Our office has 2 budget requests for this year. Number 1, we would like to purchase a new truck. Our office is requesting this vehicle to replace a current unreliable vehicle we currently have in fleet. This vehicle will pull the mass fatality trailers, which are equipped and maintained with the needed supplies to respond to any mass casualty. Number 2, we are also requesting a contractual part-time grief and trauma response counselor to provide expertise in real-time trauma and grief counseling. Someone who has a knowledge of the consequences of direct exposure to situational and chronic trauma, including vicarious trauma. This person would be invaluable in high stress and devastating mass casualties, such as bombings and mass shootings, and would serve as a potential first responder alongside the medical examiner's office to provide critical incident stress management services to both families and to personnel. This concludes our request, and I'm more than happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Doctor. I don't have any. Supervisor Yeager? We're both good. Thank you very much. Now move on to item number 7. I'll turn to Director Johnson regarding pretrial services. But Aaron, before you start, I do have one speaker card. Let's hear from the public first. Mr. David Parker. Welcome.
Supervisor, if I could I defer until after the presentation?
We have all the speakers go before the presentation, which also offers the people presenting the opportunity to address or respond to anything they may have heard.
Absolutely. So let me just get my notes real quick.
You got it.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Supervisors Wasserman and Yeager and County Executive Smith. I'm David Parker, and I'm Chief Steward for SEIU 521 in the Office of Pretrial Services. I've been with the county for 11 years. I used to work at probation for 10. And while I'm currently on medical leave, I felt my attendance was necessary today to speak to you openly and candidly about today's presentation. There's an expression, looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. Our members are drowning. In the last year, our office has been visited by multiple agencies due to our leadership in bail reform and pretrial reform. Our members are happy with that. But do you want to know why and how our office has become a leader in pretrial release services and bail reform? It's because of the hard work and dedication of our line staff, their knowledge of services, commitment to clients, and most important, their commitment to client success and community first. Our frontline members, the techs who perform testing for Prop 36, our clerical team, many who have been with the county for more than 20 years, and the pretrial officers working late nights in the jails going to court and supervising clients on pretrial release. Our members are overworked and understaffed, but there may be underlying reasons for this. They are doing more with less, morale is low, and members deserve solutions now. The director's proposal is for 2 additional pretrial 3 codes, 2 additional 1/2 codes, and a new senior research associate. Each clerk currently serves about 4 or 5 officers, and there's no proposal for clerical staff. While we appreciate Mr. Johnson's proposals for added staff, it's hard to legally support the proposals when the environment has become a my way or highway attitude under current leadership. It has been made clear that there will be no flexibility or concessions for our members, including alternate work hours or schedules that could actually benefit our community. We support adding staff if it fixes the problems in our offices, but it won't. Why have we had so much turnover in the last year and a half in so many of these positions? We should fix our problems within the office before adding additional codes. We do need these codes, though.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
The final thing really quick. The specialist, the research specialist position that's being proposed could actually fund 10 pretrial officer 1/2s to become 3s.
Thank you. I need to stop you there so it's fair to everyone.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, though.
Thank you. Mr. Largent, looks like you want to speak on this item as well.
Sorry about that. I wasn't really planning on it.
Thank you. This is pretrial services.
You know, I'm Scott Largent. I'm not that familiar with the pretrial services gig. I did look over some of the budget information and the items that you're requesting. And you know, I've met the director a couple of times at different meetings. I think he's a good guy. The interactions that I've had have been through Victorious, which he should have been able to utilize the resources from pretrial services. So I'm not too sure if this has become like this political tool or political weapon, but somebody from your office denied him services. Now, he has always completed everything he was supposed to do through court. He's always showed up to all his court appearances. He's basically complied with everything, even though he's had different issues that have popped up. So why would somebody be denied all of a sudden? That just seems kind of shady. Now, I'm not as familiar with the budget, but I just thought I'd come up here and say that. Something stinks, and I just don't agree with that. So we can cut it off at that. Scott has time to do a little more research, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Johnson.
Thank you very much. This is Aaron Johnson, a pretrial services director. We have a presentation for our budget request today. Pretrial services currently completes many assessments and collects different data points related to our outcomes and helping with recommendations for the Superior Court. We also have reform efforts that are being pushed by our own county with our bail release work group. So many of these requests are tied to the evolution of our department as we're currently moving through. So with that, let's start with the first one. Our first proposal is in relation to our current electronic monitoring program. This was started back in 2014. And as referenced here, we've gone from basically about 50 clients when we started this program to over 200 currently in this program at this time. Next slide. Our next piece is related to our bail release work group recommendation for the targeted review of clients that are in custody. When we make recommendations for release and for whatever reason that does not occur, or they're sitting with bail that they cannot meet, we'd like to be able to re-review these cases and present them back for release at hopefully a quicker time, quicker release time to provide them with alternatives for release at that time. Next slide. We started a collaboration with the office, or the District Attorney's Office and the Office of Reentry Services for our pretrial diversion program. It's a community accountability program, which was costing the clients about $400 just to try to get into the program and get it completed. And now we're offering it through our office at no cost for the client. Next slide. And then as referenced before, we are looking at many different changes coming through our office, statewide as well as nationally, and with the recommendations that we are currently working on with our bail release work group, and the changes that are coming through the changes with the court and the sheriff's database, we were requesting this position to help facilitate our collection, make sure we're staying on top of and continuing to be that leader in pretrial services for the state. So with that, those are the requests that we're making. I'll take any questions at this time.
See any there, Supervisor Yeager? No, we will consider your report received. And for anyone not familiar with this process, what's going on is the various department heads, directors, chiefs, DAs, doctors, et cetera, presenting their budget requests here in an open and public forum. They then go to the CEO, who goes through and does his comments and thoughts and changes. But this allows board members the opportunity to see budgets submitted by department heads, and gives us the whole big picture of what you consider so important. Then we'll get the recommendations after they've been analyzed through the CEO's office, and then they'll come to the whole board for consideration from that point on. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item number 8. Chief Garnett, we'll look for you for your report on the probation department.
Great. Okay, it's working. DA Rosen fixed it. Thank you very much. Can I indulge you for 1 minute and make a quick announcement? Our Deputy Chief for Juvenile Services, Kathy Martinez, is retiring May the 4th, which we're all very devastated about, to return to Texas to be with her family. So I just wanted to make that announcement. And
I think a round of applause.
Yeah. Alrighty. So the probation department this year is focused primarily on the adult side, similar to last year. What we've focused on primarily has been staff development, the institutionalization of evidence-based practices, and building our research and development division. I'm not going to go through them one by one. Let me just do a summary real quick. By doing this, when we talk about evidence-based practices, and I know we sit up here and talk about it a lot, people are probably tired of hearing it, it's really looking at the research on what works long-term to rehabilitate people, not what works in the short term. So there's a great body of research that supports and further than supports the relationship between a probationer and the probation officer having the time to spend on motivational interviewing and really understanding the criminogenic drivers of that client's behavior takes time. And we've spent the past few years training our staff. They have engaged, they are excited, they want to do it, and they're frustrated because they have larger caseloads on the adult side. So we've seen some great success on the juvenile side. We're taking some of those lessons learned to the adult side. We supervise about 9,000 clients daily. Right now, the adult caseloads are running at about 107. The national average, or the national recommendation, is 50 to 1 as opposed to 107 to 1. And so that's primarily what we're trying to do. And I am happy to go through the PowerPoint. I'm kind of getting the idea that maybe you guys are so prepped you don't need me to do that, and I'm fine going through it or not. So I will leave that up to you.
I don't have that need, Sir Yeager. I don't. No, either.
Okay. So, thank you.
One thing associated with it, I know that Chief, you gave us a off-agenda report on relating to youth who committed serious crime between 2013 and 17. And I know that Supervisor Wasserman, I know that you received it, but you gave the off-agenda report to all of us. I found it extremely comprehensive, and I think the full board should consider the series of recommendations that you put forth. So, Supervisor Wasserman, what I'd like to do is make a motion that this committee asks the full board to consider creating a new program that includes some or all these recommendations and to agendize it for the next board meeting on May 1st.
Understood and agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You got that, Chief?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, that concludes item number 8. We'll move on to item number 9 from our public defender, Molly O'Neill, for a report on the public defender's office.
Thank you.
Very appropriate.
Last but not least,
Yeah.
good afternoon. I'm Molly O'Neill, the public defender for the county. Our first 2 requests relate to our desire to have community outreach attorneys added to our staff. And these attorneys would essentially formalize and recognize the fact that we are doing work in the community, advertising our services which relate to all of the criminal justice reforms that have happened over the last 5 years, beginning with realignment, Prop 47, Prop 64, and expungement work. So we currently are out and about monthly at Grace Community Center, Little Orchard, the Alexian Clinic, and the South County Reentry Center, talking to folks who come in. We let them know we do immigration service provision, that we can help them clear their records, that we can help them redesignate old offenses related to marijuana or Prop 47 cases that are now misdemeanors. And we do that with volunteers on kind of an ad hoc basis. In fact, Assistant Public Defender Damon Silver, who's out in the audience, goes himself 2 or 3 times a month. Sometimes what we're doing is listening to people who can't figure out whether they have a warrant or not, who need to know who their public defender is. So we would like to formally have identified staff who do this work, and there is so much of it to do. It's not just advertising our current services, but also doing the work we've been doing through the Juvenile Justice Systems Collaborative, prevention work in the schools, work on disproportionality, keeping kids in school and out of the school to prison pipeline. We'd also like these lawyers to be available, and we intend to use bilingual staff to respond to requests we get from community-based organizations. For example, the YWCA called us recently to ask whether we could provide a lawyer to come speak to folks about relief that's available under SB 823 for victims of human trafficking. So if you are the victim of human trafficking and you have committed a crime, and there's a story to tell around how the human trafficking related to the commission of the crime, you can get relief in various forms. So we did send someone out to do that, but if we had community outreach lawyers available, they could do that more readily. We also get calls from DBUG to come talk to family members of clients to explain the court process and that kind of thing. We would like to have a designated member attend the court community outreach meeting, which meets once a month. And what we lose in having ad hoc volunteers do this is continuity. So as we all know, a lot of everything we do is related to relationships, and if we don't have the same people attending, you don't build those relationships, and you can't do as robust or good work. And then finally, we have been doing some Know Your Rights trainings particularly in the Eastside Union High School District, with good results and good response. And those are designed to talk to kids, and we deal with a lot of juveniles, about ways that they can de-escalate interactions with the police when they have an encounter in the community. And we think that's really important for a number of reasons, but really to keep the community safe. So next slide, please. We're asking also for an additional immigration attorney. We have a full-time immigration attorney who the board and the county exec generously funded 4 years ago. But quite frankly, as you've heard here all afternoon, we all have more work than we can handle, and that's true for her as well. She provides trainings to our multiple locations. She does individual consultations on cases. She works with the immigration attorneys in San Francisco and Alameda counties. She strategizes on statewide issues. We have also the alternate defender's office, who she is very busy and strapped. And as the Trump administration's actions have caused fear in the immigrant community, there's an even greater need than before to make sure that we're communicating with the community about what their rights are and how to avoid adverse plea negotiations so that they don't get deported. Next slide, please. And then we are requesting an additional social worker. We have 3 on staff right now, and they are extremely busy working with mentally ill, working in juvenile, and working in Department 42, which is the misdemeanor in custody arraignment calendar, where we see a number of frequent flyers. And when we are able to get our social worker in to talk to those folks, we can provide linkage to services. So we'd like to augment that work. Next slide, please. And then finally, we're requesting the addition of 2 paralegals to help with work related to the In re Humphrey decision, which came out recently and provides those who are having bail set with the right to have an ability to pay hearing. It's necessary to collect quite a bit of information in order to do those. So that would be how one of the paralegals would be used, and the other would be to help with post-conviction work related to Senate Bills 260 and 261. Next slide, please. And finally, we're requesting an additional accountant position. Our staff has grown, as I mentioned in our write-up, from 208 to 275 over the last 15 years, and we have more work to do. We are spending more money on cases based on all the things Mr. Rosen said and his staff indicated, body-worn camera footage. We have more work to do, and we need an additional accountant to help keep track of it and pay for it. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. And Mr. Largent, come on down. I apologize. I didn't see your card on this item. You'll have a couple of minutes to comment regarding the Public Defender's Office.
Hi, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Scott Largent. I appreciate the Public Defender's Office kind of listening to my complaints over time. I mean, it takes a little while after somebody, I guess, is coming off of, I mean, I've been sober now 2.5 years, but in the beginning, you're probably like, wow, this guy's nuts. He's got foil on his head. We don't want to talk to him. But after a couple of years, they're like, okay, he's coming to us with legitimate concerns, and you guys are starting to absorb that stuff, which I really do appreciate. I really do. And a big thing I've been talking about, the property that people were getting taken, that agency's doing the right thing now. They're putting up literature inside the lobby. A lot of the hard work that I've done with the different police chiefs, they're getting on board. And sometimes the relationship might not exist between the two, but you got Scott in the middle there with his bullhorn. And I'm impressed with it. And I would like to, as weird as it sounds, I hear a lot that we don't help people on a civil level. Well, I understand a liability level of suing the county or suing police departments. Just some advice for when people are going through custody issues like me. I had to learn how to navigate a system coming off of drugs, and you already got the criminal level of thing, which became a drug diversion slap on the wrist. It's gone. I had to figure out how to navigate a system to fight for my daughter, and it is not easy at all. I know that's the go-to thing that we don't help on a civil level, but maybe they could put together a packet of information that says, hey, these are the routes you have to go, these are the agencies, this is the family violence unit, these are how you file the reports, maybe these are some helpful websites. It would make people's lives easier, because this has absolutely been a nightmare for me, and I still haven't been able to see my daughter. So any advice like that, maybe. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the public comment portion on item number 9. Supervisor Yeager, any comments you wish to make? No, thank you for your report. And I do have one comment I want to make on item 5. As we went through it, I missed my notes, and I'll direct my comment to the DA and to Dr. Smith, our CEO. Mr. Rosen, you mentioned on package page 27, one of the areas, it says additions are sought in order to bolster our efforts. One was the South County Youth Task Force. I've represented the county on that for 5 years. 50% of the funding was from the state of California. Your office provided funding. The county provided funding. The cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy Police Departments provided funding. The Morgan Hill and Gilroy Unified School Districts provided funding. And not surprisingly to me at all, Supervisor Yeager, the state has just backed out. Surprise. So it is very important to me, and again, Dr. Smith and DA Rosen, that we continue funding the South County Youth Task Force. We have the results from our efforts the last 5 years. They are significant, dropping expulsions from schools 35 to 40 a year down to 2, reducing gang activity. It's made a cultural change in South County, and the DA's office has had not only a presence at each and every meeting contributing, but there has always been a contribution from your office towards this. Even the library, realizing how important it was because of gang activity in the Gilroy Library. I feel unbelievable what some gang members do to each other in between the rows of books. But what has happened has worked. And for us to discontinue that, I'll just use a public safety term, would be a crime. So I look to both of you to continue the county's funding for that and additional funding, Mr. DA, as you've asked for in your budget report, because we have now lost 50% of the funding, and the cities have stayed in, the school districts have stayed in, and I really expect our county to stay in. Thank you. Mr. Supervisor Yeager, any other comments you have or thoughts? Any thoughts about what I said?
It'd be a crime if they weren't able to fund it.
Thank you. All right. With that, oh, wait a minute. Have I handled? No, my apologies. We've got the juvenile justice. No, that was on consent, wasn't it? Thank you. That is done. That concludes our meeting, committee members. We will meet here again at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, May 30th. Thank you all very much, and thank you all to our speakers and everyone else present. Thank you.
Exactly.